many of you know, the SFC can zero fund groups during their initial allocations. What are your opinions on that, and would you try to change that constitutionally within their bylaws when you are chair of the SFC?
Zero funding, I mean, no group wants to be zero funded. However, there are specific guidelines that have been in place and I believe should be in place for years to come. Each group is presented with these specific guidelines and most groups tend to meet them. Therefore, that's where the liaisons come in. I believe that there needs to be better communication between the liaisons, although that has been worked on and improved this year. There needs to be more communication between the liaisons and their student groups to let them know these are the guidelines that need to be met, and student groups need to come together and try to comply with these guidelines, or else zero funding might be an option for them.
I think that we should use SALP as an asset to student groups. So in those situations, that would be like the last option. I think that if we work with SALP and they are actually showing us how to do things, because I'm actually part of a student group, if they're actually showing us what to do, how to do it, and we have more conversation with SALP as well as ASPSU, I think that that would be one of the last options. So I think that we should try to work together to avoid those things and maybe find other ways to remedy the problem if zero funding was needed.
What is your position on student groups having staff positions on their budget, such as the proposal for KPSU to have a full-time staff position?
I think it just depends. I'm not too familiar with that area, to be honest with you, but I know that stipend positions are very well received because although they're small, it makes people have more of an official role within the organization, and the turnover is a little less in that time. So I think I would have to explore that a little bit more to really understand the ramifications as far as human resources and all the other bureaucratic stuff that would probably go along with having a full-time staff.
I'm in that same position as well. I'm not, well, even though I'm involved in student groups, I'm not well aware of the full-time staff positions and how that exactly would work. But I feel like there just needs to be more communication. If a student group has a good presentation and it works within their budget and the SFC as a whole agrees to fund a full-time staff position, then that's the way it should go.
I just want to clarify a little bit to you. It's not necessarily stipend positions, it's full-time professional staff positions. So these aren't necessarily students. And a lot of student groups, such as KPSU, are growing and they've reached a limit where they can no longer continue to organize effectively unless they had a full-time, say, station manager. So, and it's completely legitimate, but the SFC previously has not actually endorsed full-time positions. Would you actually support that?
I think that you have to look at each case and see if that is actually sufficient. Based on what you said, I think that that would be an option because if you get so huge, you want to make sure that things are going to flow well and that you're going to continue to do the work that you've been doing. So in that situation, I think that would be an option, although I wouldn't say across the board. It just depends on the success of the student organization.
Next, should the SFC be expected to accommodate student groups that are distinctly different from other groups in their budgetary needs? For example, maybe Oxford, in their different budgetary needs to actually fund a national organization. Sure. Should the SFC be expected to accommodate student groups that are distinctly different from other groups in their budgetary needs? One example would be Oxford's requirement to fund a national organization out of their budget to exist on this campus.
I think that it would be the importance of that organization on campus. For example, OSA, I think that OSA is very important to have on campus, and in that situation, I do support it. It just depends on the organization, what it actually brings to the campus, and how is it actually benefiting the students. So it would depend on the situation, on the organization, and how that benefits the students at PSU.
Woo! Good answer.
of all, definitely believe that we have student groups because not only do they do activities outside the community, but it's kind of like, what do they bring to campus? I know with the Augsburg, they did some stuff on campus, but it seemed that a lot of the funds were going towards things that were going elsewhere that students did not see happening on campus. So it does just depend on what that student group, looking at what they want us to do, looking at the allocations that we need, and seeing, basically asking them the question, what are you bringing to campus and to the students here on campus, and then taking action from there.